Welcome to Table Talk with Brenda Perryman. We have an intriguing show for you today, and we're going to be talking on a lot of topics, and we encourage you to call in and to comment on those. And today is February 6th. It seems like we were just saying New Year, Happy New Year, and here it goes. Life goes fast the older you get. And I'd like to introduce my co-host for today.
Good morning. My name is Cheryl Ajmu. I am the CEO and founder of the Ajmu Group. We produce the Multicultural Media Luncheon during the Detroit Auto Show.
Good morning, everyone. Dr. Rose Moulton, clinical psychologist and author of Bloom 7 Steps to Personal Transformation.
And these are successful women who have their views on things. We'll just try to say that right now. But on this day in 1968, and you know I'm going from Ken Coleman's book, on this day, the Temptations record vocals for I Could Never, okay, I'll tell you what it is. I could never love another after loving you. I could never love another after loving you. Okay, in case you all don't
That was
remember.
great.
Huh?
That was great.
Anyway, also, that was in 68. I remember those days. And in 55, Eric Money is born in Detroit. He will become a basketball star player at Kettering High School before playing with the Detroit Pistons. He will earn Michigan Chronicle Prep of the Week honors in January of 1972. Eric is the best all-around player I've ever coached, Kettering's Charles Nichols will say. Money will average 12.2 points a game during his National Basketball Association career. What's more, he will land a cameo role in the 1979 film, The Fish That Saved Pittsburgh. So, Eric Money.
I've never heard of that one either.
I know. You never heard of that movie?
I've heard that name, but I never knew what that movie was about. What is it about?
The fish?
The Save Pittsburgh.
Fish
I
that
mean,
say-
I think that Dr. J was in it.
oh,
okay.
okay.
I think. I'm pretty sure. If somebody knows, because I wasn't too into that title, the fish that saved. I said, how in the heck can a fish save a city? But anyway, let's talk about this measles vaccine.
Oh, wow.
What do you think?
You know, it's a sad story. And today, I don't know if you know the latest story. There's a daycare
10
in
babies.
Illinois. 10 babies are infected now, and they were too young to have gotten the vaccination because they're we all know age ranges. So
Right.
that could be potentially deadly for these children.
Right.
It's sad, and I know a lot of people now are really outraged at the fact that I understand parents' desire and parents can opt out of it, but it's putting so many other people, and as we see these babies in this daycare in danger, and maybe it's time to revisit the policy on that.
Yeah, and maybe not give people that option because people are not taking it.
And here's the other thing. I talked to my cousin who is a doctor with the Centers for Disease Control yesterday. And she said the science is out there that says it helps. It definitely helps. She said the science is there and these people are putting other people at risk. Tom is on the line. Good morning, Tom. How are you?
Good morning, ladies. How are you? And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Same to you.
You know what, Brenda? Dr. J was in that movie. The fish that saved Philadelphia. He was.
Pittsburgh.
And also, Brenda, a little laugh out loud here. Don't quit your day job. Because I remember that song by the Temptations.
It didn't go like that.
It did go like
David
that.
Ruffin was on lead. I could never love another after loving you.
Now, I kept the tune better than you did, Tom. We could harmonize it.
Yeah,
I
right,
could-
right.
Yeah, if we harmonize, we'll both sound better. Because that was, I have it. I have it. I just, Temptations was our group.
They were it, and they are still it today.
They
Because, when Gerald McBride on Saturday, thank God for Gerald McBride and Foodie, because we can hear music that we grew up on. When he has these battles, and
Yes.
he has the Dramatics against the Temptations.
That was-
I always vote for the Temptations because they set the standard of what a group was or should be. And I mean-
Absolutely. And you
and-
know, Ron used to tell me though, he said that and they did well and they never signed with Motown.
Okay.
They came close, and there is a dramatic story, and I do have it. I have it because I had the tapes transcribed. This is before Ron died, and really, Unsung should have done, you know, something on the dramatics because it's funny. You know, they were in that Snoop Dogg video.
Right.
It's a Doggy Dog World.
Right. Ron O'Neal was in that too.
Right, and so was the breakdance guy.
Breakdance guy.
The guy who used to be on That's My Mama or whatever.
Rerun?
Rerun was in that.
Fred.
Right,
something.
Fred
Fred
Berry.
Berry,
yeah.
Fred Berry. He was in
Fred
that.
Berry,
But
yeah.
here's the thing. The reason why the Dramatics were in there is because Snoop, that was his mother's favorite group, was the
wow.
Dramatics.
Wow.
Okay.
So that's
okay.
why they were in there. I mean, because right after they came home, Ron came by the house. He would always regale me and my kids with what had happened, where they had been, and everything like that. But I think that Unsung definitely should have done.
Yeah.
You should
yeah.
send something to them.
It's not too
Well, Willie Ford was on my show, and he told on my New Year's Eve show, and he told me that they had been talking to him. But I was just saying, well, hell, I can make an Unsung
Yeah,
about them
yeah,
if they
I'm sure
wanted
you
me
can.
to.
And you have
Right,
personal
right,
insights to it.
Well, but I know the group. I know the people. You know, even though there are two groups right now, one L.J. Reynolds group and
Right.
Willie Ford has a group that's going to be playing at Andiamo's with the Manhattans or whatever group that Gerald Austin's
Yeah,
in.
that's Manhattan. That's the
Yeah,
Manhattan.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm really on it this morning. I had the coffee's
Firing on all
good.
cylinders.
But Tom, I'm going to ask you one question.
Yeah.
If you had to tell these young women about the 60s and about the music and about Detroit, what would you say?
Okay, about Detroit first. You did not have to leave this city to go anywhere or buy anything. The only time you left the city was when you went to visit relatives. Because, I mean, downtown was booming, and, I mean, yeah, Northland was out there, but it hadn't got quite popular then. But, I mean, you know, Livernois was the avenue of fashion. It was the avenue of cars. You had Willie Horton's Club 23, Joe Strotter's club. You had Baker's down there at 8 Mile, and you had another one called Maury Baker's. There was a plethora of places from the east side to the west side, from north to south, that you could go to. And the thing wasn't no drama. You could go in, have you a good time, and go on back home or wherever you were going.
Wow.
And, you know, but it was, I mean, I've been here since 1953. And I've seen Detroit go from the good to the bad to what she is right now, and that's not real pretty, okay?
Yeah.
But you know what the bottom line is?
What's that?
She's 300 plus years old. The old lady is going to rejuvenate, and she's going to be beautiful again.
Right.
Yeah, I believe
Yeah.
that.
And if you had
Yeah.
to say one thing about the music,
Oh, the music, you could understand what was being said. There was no, how can I say it?
No auto-tune.
Well, yeah, there was no
Degradation
degradation. Like,
yeah.
there was no degradation of women, nor was there degradation of us with all of this N-word and all that kind of stuff. Music,
Yeah.
it was just absolutely wonderful. Now, some of it, depending upon who was doing the singing, it was not so wonderful. But, I mean, there was none of this, like, they've taken the First Amendment and they stretched it so thin that it makes glass looks cloudy now.
Wow.
You know, with the freedom of speech and what they're doing now.
that's absolutely
And
right.
I'm going to go ahead and say that, and I'm going to go. My wife said that, she said, you know what, we came here at the best time because I was born in 47. I'm proud to say. We got a little bit of the big band, and we got the doo-wop, and then we had, as I call them, the boys, the Temptations, and it was just a great,
And let's
great time.
quickly mention this, and I know we have stories to cover, but the fact that you had writers like
Yes,
Norman
Holland Dozier
Whitfield,
Holland.
Smokey Robinson,
Smokey
and everything.
Robinson.
Smokey
Bob Dylan
Robinson.
called Smokey Robinson the greatest poet
Yeah.
that
Ever.
America had.
Ever. And you know, when he wrote, do you remember I'll Try Something New?
That's the prettiest thing I think Smokey Robinson ever did.
That is, I
not
mean,
familiar
I
with
will
that.
build you a
Ladies,
castle
you
with
all-
a tower. Hush, Tom, just a second. I gotta,
Okay.
I gotta
She's
sing
about
this.
to sing,
Well,
Tom.
I
I
won't
love it
sing.
when
Gonna have a
does
I'll
singing
just,
battle.
I'll just recite it, ladies. I will build you a castle with a tower so high that reaches the moon. I'll gather melodies from birdies that fly and
and
compose you a
compose
tune.
you a tune.
Give you loving warm as mama's oven. And if that don't do, I'll try something new. I mean, talk about romance.
That
Yes.
is romance.
That is romance. So,
Hey.
yes, Tom.
Oh, that's it. I was just humming along with you.
I know. Well,
And
we.
you know what? The music to those words, it was just so beautiful because you had the string behind it and the whole 9 yards. But listen, you all missed it. You know, I mean, I know everybody couldn't get here as early as we did. But, I mean, look at here. If you ever get a chance to go YouTube, I'll try something new.
I definitely will.
Oh yeah.
And also, in The Impossible Dream, too. I
Oh,
always, sometimes
that
when
David
I call
sang
to make a
and-
request for a
and
record,
Temptations-
I will ask them to play The Impossible Dream for Detroit.
yeah, because David sang that on Temptations Live. You know, I got it all. But listen, Tom, we got to run.
Okay, thanks for taking the call, Brent.
Thank you.
Tom.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
bye-bye.
And Cheryl, you said that your husband, what was he was trying to gather some of the music from something.
Well, when we went to the Motown the musical.
Oh, yeah.
That was really like the first time that he's not like a music kind of person. But when we went to that show, he was just so overwhelmed with the music. He was like, I gotta download all of this. You know, now every time you get in his car, he got Masterpiece on. You know,
I
it's the
know.
first thing you hear when you get in his car because it's like he had an epiphany or something.
Because there was so many layers to that music, and the harmonies were just perfect.
And
It
the
was-
orchestration was great
Oh,
too.
I mean, the Funk Brothers. You couldn't beat it with a stick. But anyway, let's go
I
back.
digress.
I mean, no, ladies, I could do a workshop on that music.
you would.
Seriously. I mean, I could sing it for you. Yes, I can.
Doesn't mean you won't try.
Yeah, I know. But yes, these people are putting other people in danger, other children in danger. How dare you?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
very dangerous.
It's going to be interesting to see how this again plays out and the effect, if any, that it has on policy. And
I
you
think
know,
it's
for
gonna have an
years
effect.
it wasn't a big deal because parents opted out, but we didn't see outbreaks. So this is
Right.
the first time I can remember that we've had an outbreak because of the and increasingly, as you said,
Yes.
Cheryl, parents are choosing not to vaccinate because of a lot of not scientifically proved evidence. That the biggest thing is the belief a lot of parents have that the immunizations cause autism. There's no scientific proof.
There's no science
Yes,
of that.
no science of that. No science of that. But you know, you plant the seed in a parent's head, and people can run with it. We know the risk of immunization far outweigh the
Benefits.
yeah,
Right.
the benefits of immunization far outweigh the risk. Now let me just go on another
I
side
know,
of this because
I know.
there's a new vaccine out, the HPV vaccine that they're pushing on kids now,
Yeah.
and I decline every time for the last several years for my children to have that vaccine because it's a new vaccine. There, for me, is not enough research to see the long-term effects. I've heard stories of individuals who've had it, and they've had some detrimental effects. Actually, two sisters that mom approved for it, and they were recently on the show, The Doctors, and both these sisters now are sterile. They have a lot of gynecological issues going on, and they were both vaccinated at the same time. Now, did the vaccine cause that? Who knows? But for me, as a parent, there's not enough proof. And the HPV prevents cervical cancer. That's the it immunizes the person, so it decreases the risk of cervical cancer for females. And they also are pushing it on the boys because men can carry the HPV virus within them, and I decline each and every time. But again, this is a sexually transmitted disease. So as a mother of at that time, a 9 and 10-year-old girl, I didn't see the benefit of exposing my daughters to something that was not a risk for them at that time in their lives. Now, who's to say we give it another several years, as they get older and as more research has been done, maybe that's something I'll reconsider. But at this point, no. But for your contagious, extremely contagious diseases, the measles, the mumps, chicken pox.
Did
Yeah.
either of you have the measles?
No, I had chicken pox.
I had the measles and chicken pox. Now, and the measles, they seem to have eradicated it
Yeah.
during my lifetime, but in those days we still had to get the measles vaccine and stuff like that before we went to school. And they give the kids these vaccines. I know my grandson had to, my
Yeah.
grandkids had to have them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they and remember even Belle Isle, they still do it. They have the vaccination clinic, so
That's
this
right.
any kid can get vaccinated. It doesn't matter
It's
if you
not
have
a
health
matter of
insurance.
money or
Yeah, or
anything.
anything like that. And what's interesting, I had chicken pox. I remember when that would happen. The doctors would say, my mom. I remember her telling me when one of the oldest got chicken pox, and the doctor said, go home and have all the kids drink after her. And she's like, you must be nuts. And she said, in hindsight, she wished she would have did that, because what happened, my sister got it for 2 weeks, next sister got it 2 weeks, I got it for 2 weeks, then my brother got it for, so it was 2 months of chicken pox, as opposed to what the doctor was suggesting. That was before the chicken pox vaccine. So it's so interesting, because my first 2 sons had chicken pox. But my 2 daughters, because they came out with the vaccine and they were both vaccinated, they've never had
Isn't
chicken
that
pox.
something? I had it when I was 5. I remember it so well because
Yeah,
my mother
you
got me a
remember that.
little plastic sewing machine. You could tell I'm a writer. I could just be going back to things. But here's the deal. When my kids, I have 3 children, and then we took in my 2 nieces from their mom passed. So I had 5 kids at the house. All 5 caught it at the
same
same
time.
time. And my husband made the mistake of figuring if he gave them a little more, there was some medicine. If he gave my kids a little more, then it'd get over it quicker. And it just made it worse. But chicken pox, all 5 at the same time.
And that was a
calamine
blessing,
lotion.
as opposed to 10 weeks.
Yeah,
of dealing
when you
with
all
it.
had it every 2 weeks. Did you have chicken pox?
No, but when I was in college, one of my good friends had it. And
college?
in college, she had it, yeah. So I think we were probably about 19, and I wasn't sure if I had the vaccine. But my mother said, "Well, you'll know in a couple of weeks," and I never got it. And I was with her because I was just, she was in just so much misery,
Wow.
So I was like putting
Would you get the
calamine
vaccine
lotion.
now?
Yeah, I think I would.
Because you've never had it. That's interesting.
Never
Yeah.
had it, but I must have had the vaccine.
Well, they didn't
as
have
a
the
child.
vaccine back then. They didn't get the vaccine until like late 90s.
Oh, well then
Yeah.
no, I guess well, that
My
is
grandson
amazing.
hasn't
Oh.
had the chicken pox, nor my other grandchildren
Yeah,
yet.
because they have the vaccine. That's mandatory. That's part of,
Those
like the
vaccinations.
polio and the rubella.
And that's what gets me. I thought that you had to have those to even go to school.
you can
That's
sign a
weird.
waiver. That's they even have my son will be going to college
Right.
in the fall.
Right.
And they're requiring he get certain vaccine now, which I don't remember them requiring this 4 years ago for my
Right,
other
or
son.
me
So, they're still, it changes, because with each child, it's like, where did this vaccine come from? I didn't this wasn't here with the first. And it makes you wonder. As a parent, I want to do my research.
Right.
So it's not, I think we all should be informed consumers and not just say, okay, the doctor said do this, so I'll do it. So, but do your research and you'll see the scientific facts. I know there are more mothers now in the last week that are coming forward who have children of autism saying, I don't believe that the vaccines cause
Right,
this,"
I've seen that.
which is good, because what we typically see is a lot of just, Holly Robinson Pete, she's big on not vaccinating and believing that, the immunization has something to do with that, as well as some other well-known people. But I just say do your research, and also consider the other people, because you're putting other folks at risk. These poor
Right.
10 babies.
I know.
These 10 babies at daycare is bad enough, as new mothers, you have to take your
Yeah,
newborns.
and you know it's going to be something going
And
around.
just think of the
Yeah.
guilt that some of these parents are feeling,
Yes.
and the risk that the children. This is risk. This is risking their lives.
Right,
'Cause they're
because
so fragile.
measles can be devastating.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to this senator who says restaurant employees shouldn't be made to wash their hands. See, this is all this Republican thing about the government controlling. What?
I
the
wouldn't eat
stupidest thing I've
anywhere
heard.
near him.
I mean, what is that? You're saying that
Oh,
they
my
should not
God.
wash their hands?
What kind of person?
I would say consider the source. This is like the stupidest thing I've ever
Yeah.
heard. Is he just wanting to draw some attention to himself by
I think
making
so.
a statement so outrageous?
See, what's happening now is the fact that here they go with some of them. See, they're trying to play to their base. And some of his base says the government has too
We
much.
have rights. You
And
can't tell
then
us what to do.
here's Jeb Bush coming along, who's kind of in the middle of the road, and he may have some issues because Jeb Bush is a decent guy.
Yeah,
He's a smart guy.
I was seeing him the other day, and you know what I said? I said, "Wow, there's something about him I like."
Yeah,
which
was-
surprised me because he's a Bush.
Well, the thing is, he was the smartest one.
It obviously comes across that way.
I was down in South Beach when he was running. And I remember he was speaking Spanish in the campaigns and everything
Wow.
because his wife is Hispanic.
yeah.
So that was just interesting. And so this senator is playing to that base. But if I owned a restaurant, everybody's going to have to save it.
Absolutely.
Now let's talk about Mr. James Robertson, the walking man.
Love him. Oh my gosh. Love him.
I
He's
mean,
great.
why do you love him?
I think his just the fact that he has been walking to work for 10 years and he never complained about it.
Yeah,
Never
I
missed
know.
a day.
Never missed a day.
know.
Getting 2 hours of sleep.
And
By the
he's-
time he got home, it was time to get up and go
That's
back
just-
again.
and 2 hours of sleep. I mean, I'm just
That's
thinking like, oh
nothing.
my God, like it's like The Walking Dead almost. He said we catch 15,
Yeah.
20 minutes on the bus. But this story just really restored that sense of humanity, compassion, and hope
Mm-hmm.
in the world. It was such a feel-good story. I posted it when I read it early Sunday morning, like it was
Mm-hmm.
about 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. I posted it like, oh my God, this is simply
Mm-hmm.
amazing. Like, can the guy at least get a bike? They put on the bus
Well,
and ride
the
to work.
story came out late Saturday night, I guess early Sunday morning, because I have this tendency. I wake up every night and want something. I don't know. my life has been different. I just wake up and want something, and so my phone is next to me, on
You
the
read.
nightstand. I kind of look and see if I have any messages or so forth. And I read it, and I said, "What? All those miles, and as cold as it is, but not
Yes.
only that." It tells you about a person's desire to
Yes.
work
Yes.
and but I didn't understand how he couldn't afford a car. I know it was
Yeah.
only $10 an hour, but
and
didn't
not
it
only that,
cost-
think about, because I think a lot of people in the city can afford a car, but the insurance is going to be
Yeah.
more than a car.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's
The
an
insurance.
issue. You get a car, you go buy a car, even
Yes.
if you don't have a car note or a car note for a couple $100, the insurance $400-500 a
Yes.
month.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's ridiculous.
And Mayor Duggan said he was going to do something about that. Detroit have its own auto insurance. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
It is.
And I talked to one of the state reps, and he told me that Detroit has some of the highest insurance rates in the country.
Yeah, I believe
I can
it.
believe it.
I believe it.
I can believe it.
It's and I know we have another story later on, but it's so expensive if you choose to live in the
Yeah.
city because of that. You
Yeah.
know,
And people don't understand. A lot of times they say, "Oh, you sell out, you moved out." Who wants to pay so much for house insurance, so much for car insurance, which is one of the biggest rackets you
Yeah.
ever?
totally agree.
Yeah, because you
It's-
never get anything. And then when you need it, then they make you pay to get the money that you've already put in it.
Well, I was in a car accident about 2 years ago. I was rear-ended. Wasn't my fault. I'm stopped, and this guy rear ends me, causes damage, and I had an injury.
Plus your back and
it was my
stuff.
neck. Yeah,
Neck,
my
from
neck.
whiplash.
So I had to go and get some physical therapy for a while. I'm insured, fortunately, but whatever the insurance didn't pay, the insurance is responsible for paying it. We have these PIP auto laws. So the insurance had to come out of pocket after when it was all said and done of approximately $250.
That's all?
That's all. When I went to renew my insurance, because I used the PIP service, went up
I'm sure.
80%.
There you go.
What?
I can believe
And I
it.
told them I'm not, and I just left that company. I said, you guys only paid. I said, you're telling me because you had to come out of pocket of $200. Well, Michigan law, it doesn't matter. I said, I only used $250 of this. It doesn't matter if you use 250 or she said, or $10,000. It's the same thing because you took advantage of the PIP and services that our insurance tells us that they offer for us. I had to be ranked. Now, initially, when she ran the numbers, she gave me numbers. I'm like, great. Then she said, oh, something came up. You took advantage of this PIP, and now the rates have
Now,
changed.
what is this PIP?
It's called personal injury protection. I believe that's what it is, but it's supposed to protect the insured and uninsured,
I hate to
medical
ask you, but
costs.
what company was that?
This was I don't care because they called again asking for me to come back, and I said, take my number out of your system. Don't ever call me again. Liberty Mutual, and I was so impressed with them initially because they had some of the lowest rates around, but because of that situation, and I said I was not at fault. Police did not issue me a ticket. The other person had a ticket. I was injured, and had to take off time from work to go and get physical therapy. So it makes you feel like you're helpless in that type of situation. So I agree, Brenda. I think auto insurance is one of the biggest rackets that
It's a
exists.
racket. It is a racket, and I don't trust.
Insurance, period, I think.
Wait a minute. I had the flood.
I know.
You know,
Yeah.
I had the flood. Never had a claim. Never had a
Paid for
claim.
30 plus years, right?
Right. Right. Yes, sure did. Golly, I
So
don't
you got to
even
look
like-
at that. You gotta
And
look
I
at
had never had a claim. Had a claim, that didn't really take care of everything, but I did get some money because all my appliances downstairs were destroyed. And they had the nerve to hike up my insurance.
Yeah.
for money that
So
you
unfair.
have already paid.
And then before I got my renewal, it said, call in and let's talk about your insurance. I said, oh, Lord. Call in and talk about it. My God. What did they want to do? They raised my rates or something. I have to do something.
Yeah. So with him, his car went down, but then there are a lot of people driving without insurance. We know that in the
Yeah.
city, and I can understand why. I can really understand why.
Yeah.
If you have to get to a job, you have to support a family. You can't have
And
a family
especially
and walk 21 miles a
If you
day.
have to get to a job at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yes. And if it's not in your budget, if it's between me feeding my children or paying that $500 in car insurance for a claim I may never
That
have,
is, and
I'm going to feed my
that's for
children.
a person who's of some age.
Yeah.
Imagine the teenagers.
So think about for James Robertson, the cost his insurance would have even cost. It doesn't matter the year the
Because
car.
where he
Yeah.
lives too.
And the gas, because we know gas was running $3
Yes.
a gallon until
Right.
recently. So
Right.
that would have taken most of his $10 an hour earnings. I have a friend who owns a business, and when I was telling her about the story, I went over her home for Super Bowl Sunday. She looked at her husband. They have a business, and she says, we need to get that man working for us because that's some work ethic,
Yeah.
that she
That's
could
the
appreciate.
other thing. That's the other thing. Let's talk about that quickly. That work ethic.
Oh, my
I
God.
mean, I remember myself, and I'm sure you all do, going to work not feeling the best,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
your dedication to going
made
to
a
this
commitment.
job. You made a commitment when you
commitment.
get that job. And then I never forget, some people, they don't understand why they're called in because they're late every day and stuff. I mean, I had people, this one instructor, I went to tell this person, listen, the secretary told me could I speak to you because you're signing in late, you're coming late, your students are upstairs by themselves and stuff like that. And she started playing the race card. And this was another black person. Oh, she's white. She just,
Yeah.
And it isn't about that. It's
No.
about responsibility because you have to teach those kids.
Yep. And meeting your responsibility and doing what, and you know, when I taught at the college, I taught at the college for 10 years. And so I would have students come in, I couldn't get my paper done, or I couldn't come to class because I didn't have a sitter, or all types of excuses. Or, you know, I have children, and I would tell them, I said, I have 4 of my own. And I took labors and final. Actually,
Finals in labor.
finals in labor. I took
Right.
finals in labor. You know, I had a child with each degree and was working full time. Like you have to have an ethic. If it's something that's important to you, I think a lot of people, instead of reaching for ethics, they're reaching for excuses to explain why they can't do what they're required to do.
Right.
But that's so important to me, and that was what really stood out with this guy. You know, his character, and even after they interviewed him, it says a lot about his character. You should get him on the show, Brenda.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
Tell him
that's
you'll
good.
drop him off at work, so cut some of those hours off, get him on
I'm
the
sure
show.
everybody tries to take him to work now.
I think he's going to be on a national show, and today on ABC, he's going to be the person of the week for the
Awesome.
ABC
Yeah,
News.
that story was just
National news.
touched your
This
heart.
man, 21 miles each day.
Couldn't imagine. Oh,
And
my
I'm still
God.
waiting for somebody to give him a car. We're in Detroit.
No, Pam Rogers offered him a
Somebody?
car.
Okay,
Yeah, he has
thank
over
God.
$300,000
Over.
raised
I
in
know,
GoFundMe.
but I was
Over.
hoping, that he would get a car.
So yeah, I don't know if he has it yet.
I
but-
don't know. Does he have a license?
Well, that it wasn't said he had a car. He said
I
it
don't
went
know.
down. So I'm gonna assume unless he didn't renew it, but you know, it's not hard to get a license if that's the case. But I like the fact that there's been a board appointed to manage the money.
And this young man, this Wayne State
19-year-old.
student, read the story and he just got right on
He
top
got,
of it.
and that says a lot about him. Because even when I saw it, I told my husband, I said, you know, I'm ashamed at myself. I said, first of all, I wasn't thinking big enough because I'm saying, can we get this man a car? I mean, a
Right.
bike? And it should have been, what can we do? You know, but this
help him.
19-year-old took that initiative and
Yes.
set up that GoFundMe. It was a few other people that did it as
Right.
well. And they collaborated together,
Right,
which is
right.
good. But that says that this story just makes you feel good. It makes you feel good.
His whole life has changed just in that instant.
And he
And
was
why
living
hasn't he
with
had a
his-
raise? But that's
Yeah,
there was a whole bunch
And the
of
smart bus issue, why the buses don't go out there.
That was
yeah,
another
that's the
thing.
politics
A
part
lot
of
of
it.
people can't get jobs
Yes.
because they can't make it
They can't
out
get
there.
there.
You know, because everybody's not going to walk that far.
Oh,
Right.
no, they shouldn't.
Right.
They shouldn't.
Right.
Because sleep is important, Brenda.
I know.
Sleep is
And
extre-
quality of life.
Quality of life. Because what was the quality of this man's
He
life?
doesn't have one.
And then and I was reading the article when the boss was like, you know, he's one of my best workers, and
And
he
what
loves.
does that say about his
I
boss?
bring him food. My wife cooks, and I'm like, you know, forget
What
that
does that
soul
say?
food. Give that man.
What does that say
and
about that boss?
I mean, he said my wife brings him soul food and all this
Like,
stuff.
give
I
him
said,
a
what
little
the
fried
heck?
chicken. Give
How
him
could
a
you
raise.
know that your employee walking to work every day and you don't try to assist them? What does that
know.
And
say
it
about
does
him?
because even the friend I'm talking about that has her own business, she's been known to repair workers' cars, you know, for them to even go and purchase like really inexpensive cars and set up a payment plan with them to take it out of their account. Because if you have a good employee, that's invaluable.
You want to
Yeah.
keep
You
that
wanna keep
employee
that employee.
because he helps your quality of life,
do.
or she helps your quality of life, and helps your business. And I remember as a teacher, there were a couple of kids. They lived on 9 Mile, and they weren't, you know, affluent.
Yeah, yeah.
And I would always come. I didn't have to come down 9 Mile because the school I taught was
Yeah.
10 Mile in Lasser. But I started coming down that way so I
get
could
'em.
give them
Yeah, yeah.
a ride to work, and you could smell the kerosene because they had a kerosene
Oh,
heater in
yeah.
the house. You could smell it on the young man's jacket and stuff. And when you see a need and these people are trying
something
to
about
doing
it.
well in
Yes.
school, because I've had students who are doing so well and they have so many obstacles against them. That talks character.
Yeah.
And this man had character. Now somebody else, this other article that
Yeah.
you posted yesterday on, he might want to consider not taking the money. Would you talk about that?
You know, it's a hot. You know, this is a hot story. So there's always going to be someone who wants to come with a different angle to bring attention to themselves, basically.
Right.
But you know that basically this person, and I know you read it too, Brenda,
Yes.
was suggesting that when people donate, as these hundreds of and thousands of people have donated to his cause, that they feel like they have invested in you. And so they have some type of control over your life. This is what the writer of the article was suggesting. So they feel like they, if you don't, I guess, meet their standards, they feel as though you've disappointed them. But when I was reading that article, you know what I thought about. You remember the story a few years back, the man with the golden voice?
Oh, yes.
Yes. So I remember how
The
national
homeless
news
man who was
Yeah.
singing.
was,
and-
yeah. And so beautiful voice,
I mean, talking, yeah.
Yeah, beautiful voice. And so when they, he became a whirlwind. So this guy was on Good Morning America, Today Show. He was on everything. He was offered jobs with the Cleveland Cavaliers, I believe, as being an announcer, things of that sort. And I think he relapsed on drugs.
He did, yeah.
And that became a hot story, and people are angry. He's letting this opportunity go or what have you. So that's what I was thinking about, but you have no right. When you give, you give not because you want to have a tie-in to
Right.
this person. You give because you feel that that's the right thing to do.
And you know who I admired is Mr. Pollock or whatever his name is, who was giving
The
this young
banker.
man a ride.
Yeah.
He was giving him a ride all the time. He was the banker,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
The
yeah.
banker.
And so he's the one that set up the board.
Yes.
That he says he's going to oversee
And
this
is he
money.
the one that's
Well,
calling the
he
news?
No,
says he
yes.
wants nothing to do with the money. This Pollock, he said this was something I do. We became friends and everything like that.
Yeah.
It just was so heartwarming.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And lots of people I saw when on the site, social media site of the Free Press, after they posted it, there were a lot of people posting like this story. Hey guys, it's true. I see this man. I take this route to work every day, and I see this man when it's pouring raining. I see this man when it's 2 feet of snow out. I see this man when it's blistering hot. And I always wonder. People would say, I always wonder, where was he going? They would see him consistently every day. And where is this guy going? So I'm sure for them to read the story and say, wow, this guy,
Wow.
21 miles a day.
Can
Just
you
at the
imagine?
Good Samaritan. Everybody passed him by except one person.
I know. Golly, that brings a lump in my throat. Well, I wish him the best.
Absolutely.
And I think his personality is different than the guy with the golden voice.
Right.
He seems a little more grounded.
Did you see any interviews with him? I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't he? Yes, you're
He
right.
seems a lot more grounded and a lot more focused, because he could have easily said, well, I don't have to work now.
Yeah.
I've got, at the time, I think it was like 200 and something thousand.
Yeah,
Now
yeah.
it's 300,000.
Yeah.
He could have easily said, well, I don't need that. I'm going to get a car from somebody. I've got all
I
this
think I'd
money.
get that cane and get out of
Oh my
the
God! You GoFundMe for Brenda. Look here.
I know. I don't. I think this. Speaking of GoFundMe, how many requests do you get for GoFundMe campaigns that you say, "Wow, there are other routes this person could take to get
Yeah.
this done"? And I am, unless I know it intimately or know the person, I gave some money to one because this person was trying to get over to the School of the Arts, graduated from Wayne in New York, and she never left.
Wow.
And I said, I will
How
not do
disappointing
this.
is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
think that's a risk you take
When you
with
give,
that.
and the thing, give is not to. I remember giving to when Hurricane Katrina, going and giving to
Yeah,
different,
we
and people would say, well, how do you know if the money? I said, you know what? It's not even about that at this
Yeah.
point. I have to trust that that
Right.
they're going to do what they need to do, but I needed to give.
Absolutely.
So yeah, there are a few that I've given to, but getting back to James Robertson real quick. He's just such a man of character because I think it was a smart bus. They have these commuter buses. They said, we can pick you up from this location, take you directly to work. He said, you know what? I would rather see you guys do a major overhaul of the complete transportation system than trying to do,
To accommodate one person.
Accommodate one person.
What does that say about
Yeah,
him?
it says a
You know?
lot. And this story, again, is going to, like you said, the political side is going
Yes.
to bring light to just this horrific transportation system that we have in the city. And even the one rail line. Great thing.
You took the words out of my mouth.
Yeah, Brenda.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going from downtown to the boulevard? I mean, to the boulevard? That has really sickened me when I mean, I understand the rail thing, I understand, and I love subways and stuff like that, but I tell you, here these people cannot get to work. People are standing outside for hours trying to get a bus.
Some with children.
With children. Children,
In this
and then
weather.
kids are trying to get to school.
Yeah.
And then this week with the snow, that was another whole issue. But we got to move on. God, time go. Karen Dumas had an article that dealt with. It was more of a column that dealt with respect those who stayed in Detroit, because she was saying that she felt that. You know, a lot of people are coming into Detroit, but in a way it seems like there's some people feel like they're being alienated.
Or not recognized for
Yeah.
having stayed.
Stayed in
you know.
Detroit.
Yeah.
It's just we're coming in, we're moving you out.
Yeah, yeah.
What do you all think about that?
I commend the ones who stayed.
Yeah.
I had to leave, you know,
Yeah.
and I probably shared this story before. I had bought a home in the city, and I've had that home. I just sold the home last year, but I kept the home in the city. But I lived in this home and put over $30,000 in renovations. This was back in the early 90s that I did. You know, I would tell people it was my oasis in the ghetto. You know, I was making it my home, loved it. And there was a lot across from me and behind me that I fought hard to purchase because I wanted to, you know, gate it in. Would go down to the city repeatedly and just couldn't get anywhere with it. No one returned my calls, and it was just so frustrating.
By the way, there was a story on television about a man who had been trying to buy his lots. It was on television 2 days ago.
Really? And
Same thing.
Same thing. And this was, again, like I said, this was 90s. This is the
Right.
90s when I'm going through this. And basically, the ultimate decision came when it came down to education, because at this point I had one child, had another, and my son was in elementary school. And it was a decent, you know, one of the magnet charter type schools or what have you, but I knew he'd be going to middle school soon. Could not find a middle school in the area that I felt comfortable sending him to. You know, that when I did the research, I didn't like their
Absolutely.
performance records. And so I had an option. I had to think about it. I know in Karen Dumas' article, she talks about this. I said I could go find a private school and pay anywhere from $1,000, $1,500 a month to send my son to a private school I'm going to have to take him to and from, you know, or I can take that $1,000 a month, $1,500 a month, and put it toward a home, you know, in a place where my car insurance is going to be cheaper, where I know this is a good educational system for him. And that's ultimately what I chose for my children, because of the education factor. But I do commend, I have several friends that are still in the city, and they all send their kids to private schools as
Absolutely.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So,
never lived in the city. When I moved here from Memphis, we tried to buy a home. This was like what, 96. We tried to buy a home in Detroit, but I don't know. We just couldn't seem to find what we were looking for, or it was just there was some issue and we were trying to call the city for something. And that's when I saw how hard it was. And the people seemed kind of crass when
Yeah.
you call, you know,
Right.
probably because I
Kind
had
of.
like a southern accent.
No, they
and they were
did.
just probably
Girl,
like,
you didn't
oh,
have to-
shit,
Well,
you know.
because too, there's
didn't matter.
no accountability. There's no accountability. People were just doing what they. I know people who've gone down to the assessment place
I
and they
did
would
that
talk to
several
so
times.
rudely and everything. Go down to City Hall, and customer service.
That's
Yeah.
what it is.
you would dial a number, I mean, and I'm not joking, and it would ring forever, or it would be busy forever. You would never get through. And so you'd go down there and you still wouldn't get anywhere. And that's quality of life too. That becomes
Yeah.
so frustrating. That affects your health, you know, your
Yeah.
emotional health,
Your time.
your time. So
I'm going to bring up something that a lot of people consider trite. I'm just going to bring it up. When I go, you know, sometimes drive through in Detroit, if I have my grandson with me and we're going somewhere, and I mean, and I understand because of the danger, you know, but sometimes trying to get that thing, if the money will drop because the person, they have that little thing
Yeah.
you turn
Mhm.
around.
Yeah.
And I just say, people don't realize sometimes that there are places you could go, you just hand the stuff, but I understand the danger part of it.
You know, my husband lived in the city for a long time. He was in the New Center area,
Right,
you
I
know, where there was
remember.
actually had what do they call that? The association. So,
Right.
you know, very proud of, he said he was a diehard Detroiter, would never leave. And when he ultimately moved out he said it was like it opened up a whole new world. He said he did not realize just how easy going, you know, like you said, without the plexiglass, when you go to just your local
Yeah,
corner
just going
store.
to the bank. I remember going to the bank in Detroit, and I didn't know because coming from another state, we didn't have to go through
Metal
this
detectors.
tunnel
Oh.
to go to go inside the bank. And I was just like looking around, like, what is this tunnel that I'm in? Why can't I just walk in? So I had to go through this tunnel and then wait, and then go through a security, and then I was in the bank, and I was like,
But sometimes, and both of you know my daughter Heather, she was going in this bank on Southfield Road, and this was Southfield between 9 and 10, and she went in the bank. When she got inside the door, somebody came behind her, and held the door. She got in, and the guys with the AKs were there. They
What?
were robbing
Oh
the
my
bank.
God.
Everybody had to lay on the floor like this. I'll never forget how she called me at work crying, the fear and everything. So I understand
Yeah, we understand why.
why, but I just
But we
can't.
shouldn't have to live. No
We
one should have to
shouldn't
live
have
that
to
way.
live like
You know,
that
the
if you
yeah,
can help it.
I totally agree. Kids should be able to have an education that's equal to the education that their suburbanite peers are having. We should be able to pay car insurance, you know, that's
That's
commiserate
reasonable.
to, yeah, what that's
Reasonable.
not taking 10-20% of your
Right.
overall income. You know, that's
Absolutely.
ridiculous. It's just the
And-
whole system. And hopefully, because we see downtown Detroit is coming together.
Yeah,
And
it's
we're hoping that
definitely
it
changing.
just has that
Blooms.
blooms, that trickle out effect, whatever, is required, go into the neighborhoods. Take that same sense of urgency that's being demonstrated in the downtown area and apply it, in the neighborhoods. Apply it in the neighborhoods.
We have Marcia on the line. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm really enjoying the show. You all are absolutely telling the truth about conditions here in Detroit and our plight with the city services. It has been horrendous. I've been here for 45 years. I've been in this hall for 41 years. And this is what the total disrespect for the citizens of when we would call for help. And we saw many beautiful neighbors leave. They just threw their hands up in the air. And we were called to ask them, will you all come and get them? They're tearing up our neighbors' homes. We know they invested money in these homes, and they ripped them and stripped them.
Yeah.
And so, but however, we stayed here. And hopefully, that the mayor has taken away the block rents for people, seniors, to have their homes repaired. I hope that they will take those. They've taken the block grants and given them to loans so that new people can get the loans to have their homes fixed up. So we're going to have a condition where the old, we are going to be financing the new. And I think that is so totally unfair.
Wow.
Yeah,
a whole different
it is.
perspective.
And Marcia, this lady I know was looking out. She saw the house across the street being robbed. People taking stuff out. Called the police. The police didn't show up.
Yep.
Here you try to be a good neighbor, and police not showing up.
Yeah. When I had a break-in in my home, I called, 911, and no one ever came. And I called back, and they said, well, you're not in our district. And then, well, what district am I in? And call this other district. And so they were basically fighting because other districts said, no, you are in their district. Call them back. And it just became, it was like six hours later. Yeah.
Same with stolen cars. My daughter, she lived on Carter. Her car was stolen. She's coming out to go to work. And that's the other thing. You're trying to work. You're trying to do. Car was gone. She called. Of course, she had to call another number. Then she had to go to the precinct. She didn't have a car. Go to a precinct and file the report.
Wow.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's just ridiculous.
It's
It's
totally
Well, wait a minute. Well, you know what? 15 years ago, they used to tell us that not to call the police unless somebody was dead. Okay? They said, we said, well, they're out here shooting.
Wow.
And they said, well, is anybody dead? Okay, now 15 years ago. So, yes, we want to change administration to make things better for the city. We pay our taxes. We are homeowners, and we should have services.
Right.
It's horrendous to me to see how clients of mine in West Bloomfield Hills, the police come out to their house, they so nice, and they talk so nice to them. Some of the clients fall on the floor, and the police come inside the house and pick them up off the floor and everything. And how differently police act in West Bloomfield as opposed to how they act and treat us citizens who pay their salary.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. But like I say, so many places there's no customer service, no empathy, and so forth. Okay, thank you, Marcia.
Thanks, Marcia.
Thank you.
And we had Rhonda on the line. Rhonda, please call back. But yeah, that's a shame. You know, Marcia was saying that, you know, don't call them unless somebody's dead.
Yeah.
What
That's
is
horrible. That's horrible.
Or it's not an emergency. You know, they don't consider your emergency
I'm telling
an emergency.
you, quality of life has so much to do with your health.
Yeah.
And your mental
Your
health.
mental.
And
You know, my mom refused to leave the city, and we would try to talk her out of it. Ma, get out of there. She didn't want to leave. That was her house. It was paid off. She'd been there, you know, for years. But it affected even going to pick her up. I would get stressed going to pick her up.
before
And
my
take her
mother,
places.
mother lived on Winthrop near Grand River, and she'd go to Ford Hospital for her doctor. And so instead of driving, she'd go up to the bus stop to take the bus. My mother was standing on the corner of Grand River and Greenfield, and my mother got shot.
Oh my God.
It was a BB. She got shot with a BB gun up there. And I mean, I think the BB's still in her.
Yeah.
I mean, she went to a doctor and everything. Nobody should live like that.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Golly. And ladies, you know, it's almost that time. Shoot, we didn't even get to Bobby Christina. Of course, that's a fluid situation
Yeah,
that
yeah.
every day is something different. You don't know what to believe.
Yeah.
But my cousin worked for
Yeah.
Emory
And,
Hospital.
and you know, so you know, like I know, because I'm aware of, you know, someone studied the brain and things. When they send you to a center like that,
You're right.
it means it's really dire. Really.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
The hospital could do no more. Brain injuries are so, especially being without oxygen, 2 to
Yeah.
5 minutes, and that's what they're estimating. It could have been longer because it was long enough for her body to reposition itself in the tub, because they said she was found face down,
Right, face down.
in the tub. We're praying for her. That poor child, you know, has just gone through so much
Yeah.
in
I
the
think
last.
that show was just too much.
You
I
know-
think that Whitney Houston movie Lifetime, I think it was too much.
Yeah, I think the last 3 years have been too much, because losing, you know, I lost a mom, you know, so I know when you
The
lose a
trauma
mother,
associated with that.
it's like you have lost a part of yourself. It's a visceral
is.
response,
And
and
we just got the wrap up sign. We could keep talking on
Yeah,
this
well,
next
we can
week.
talk next week about that.
on this longer. Everybody, we'll see you again next week on Table Talk with Brenda Perryman. This has been a great conversation, and I tell you,
fastest hour.
I know, fastest hour in the West. See ya.